Hey guys, what's up? You're listening to the Grey Av podcast, Survival Skills for the 21st Century, and my name is Grey Jabesi, and this is the first episode in 2020, and it's our episode 150. So, I started this podcast in 2016, meaning that now it's about 4 years. Pretty excited, and thank you guys for being here for all that time. For those of you who have been listening for a long time, and thank you to those who are just getting started, who are joining us now, whether you're listening to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and whatever platform that you're using. So this is a solo episode. I'm not having any guest on here. I just wanted to share my views on, or at least my reflections on 2019, and where I'm heading to in 2020, or the entire new decade that we're getting into. It's quite significant right now if you have to think about this as a new decade, because I was looking at what I did or where I was 10 years ago and where I am now. Wow, 10 years is such a long time. It makes a huge difference. So another way of thinking about a decade, I thought, is probably to add 10 years to your current age, right? So if you're 25 years old or 30 years old, just add 10 to it, and then you realize that, hey, it will make a huge difference. So make it count. Make it count. And at the same time, taking it 1 year at a time. So what I did was I exited the city a little bit. I went out in the woods, spent 2 days there, and to just reflect and think for myself. What I wanted was just to be alone a little bit. So I went out there and I had time to sit down and reconfigure the operating system that runs my life, right? So I hiked for 17 kilometers and back, and had time to chill. And I came back with a list of things that I did right in 2019. I will share some of those things here as well. And I also made a list of things that I did I weren't happy about. Could have done better, or in other words, I did wrong. And you'll be surprised that the wrong list is like 3 times longer than the right list. So shows you how much work I need to put in self-development and becoming better. On the wrong list, there are things like waking up late, which is a big problem to me. I've been working on it for some time, hasn't been working, and I have to work on it. And there are things like watching too much YouTube. There are things like not learning how to swim, not doing cost-benefit analysis for most decisions, not sticking to my standards, dealing with losers or desperate people. That's also one thing that I added there. Not going big enough, or not thinking big enough. Bad food choices, cheating on myself. The list goes on and on, but these are some of the highlights from there that I'm happy sharing with you. And I came back with also another list of things that I must do, and things that's been working. So the way I looked at this was, okay, I need to analyze my business life. That's looking at growth and income generation. And also I had to look at my personal life. That's, say, my health and relationships, right? Which, in some ways they're kind of cross paths, but I just had to make a distinctive list. So moving on, one of the things that I did actually, or thought of, was to make the podcast shorter when it comes to the podcast itself, because looking at the data and the patterns of how content is being generated right now, I think people consume more shorter content, even though it's harder for me to identify which well, how short must I make them? I would just try to make them shorter than they are. I think that's a very mystical number, other than saying 5 minutes. But I've been listening to Naval's podcast on Spearhead and the Naval podcast itself. I learned how you can condense some of these ideas or concepts into very small bits of time. And so I came back with new principles based on the things that I came up with. And the new principles were based on identifying what works and doing more of it, and also defining things. So I'll expand on all this. So I think on identifying what works should be probably the last topic that we discuss on this episode. I'll get to it. But defining things, well, this was more like identifying my definition of things like fun, for example, right? What is fun to me when I say I'm having fun? And this came about because there are things that I weren't happy about on the unhappy list, on the wrong list, in other words, that I was like, okay, this was just a waste of time and I don't enjoy them. For example, I don't really enjoy going out like that. I don't drink like that. So going out is something that when I go, I do enjoy having a little bit of banter with friends, but anything beyond that is not really anything that, excites me. I always regret it in the morning because I wake up late. So that's something that I'm like, okay, I need to define my definition of fun, right? So I made a list of things that I enjoy doing. Like I enjoy water, for example, but I do not know how to swim, even though I've scuba dived a couple of times. So I'm like, okay, I would rather go swim, right? So I need to define what's fun for me, and then I need to do more of those things. Another thing that I wrote was overcoming self-doubt or boost confidence. And this is actually a good example of it, that I'm recording a solo episode because I don't do a lot of solo episodes. And I think this probably stems from self-doubt or some lack of confidence, and I had to exhibit this and be upfront with it myself. That okay? To overcome it, one of the things I can do is to just do more solo episodes, and also to promote myself aggressively, right? And these are things that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And I've been getting better over the years with self-promotion and things like that. So this year I want to double down on that and really be aggressive about promoting myself, using social media to put using social media to put ads on things to promote myself. And this point will also be relevant on doing more things that work, right? Because it will be relevant. So I think self-promotion is very important, something that I should be doing more. So let's jump to identifying what works. Okay, so in 2019, one of the most important things that I learned was content creation, right? Or let me put it this way: helping people works. What do I mean by that? Is that I have helped a lot of people through the content that I create on YouTube, on the podcast, featuring on interviews and other people's channels, or on television or radio. Everything that I did, to sort of reach out to people has brought with incredible benefits. And I never considered myself a content creator until maybe late 2019. Then I was like, okay, this is kind of making sense. So that's where also self-promotion comes in, because I've realized the power of online real estate, right? A lot of people talk about real estate as, property and all that. But if right now you had to offer me a house worth $200,000, or a social media account, for example, especially YouTube, or even Instagram with 200,000 people, legitimate people, not bots or anything, I would pick the account worth 200,000 people, not the $200,000 house. And this is because I learned the power of a following, right? So, for example, I can give you a simple example. I made a video on Paxful. Paxful is a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency platform, right? I made a video in July just to help people how to use it, and I forgot about it. And by the end of in December on the 28th, I was just looking at my Paxful account, and I came across that I had $1,200 worth of Bitcoin in that account. Why? It came out of all those people that watched that video and were signing up. So Paxful has an affiliate program, right? And I didn't even know that it can get that big. So it's something that I was like, okay, I really need to pay attention to this. Another good example is it's Airbnb, right? Whenever I go to Airbnbs, I made some videos. Sometimes I think I did like 3 videos or something in 2019 on Airbnb, and I just shared them on YouTube. It had like 200 views, one of the videos, but I had a few people sign up and using my link, and Airbnb actually pays you some money when you get people signed up and they start using their platform, right? So this led to me having a free trip to where I went for my New Year's Eve, out in the mountains. I had Airbnb there for 2 days, incredible home, and I stayed there for free, right? So this is something I'm sharing, things that anyone out there can do, right? You don't have to be a YouTuber for you to make a YouTube video about Airbnb or a certain product that you use a lot, or Uber or something, because when people watch it, they're looking for whatever they need, they come across your content, and then they use it, and you get incentivized for that by all these companies. And I realized that there are people that are actually living a life for free simply by sharing things with the world through social media, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or whatever. Everything that you enjoy, you'll find that there is, especially the online platform, has some kind of affiliate deals on there. So I realized this works, and I will be doing more of that. And this is besides my actual business. This is just like the things that I've just been identifying as far as content creation. And as for income generation as well, I had a lot of my income has been improved by the social media, and let me just say the internet presence that's there. Meaning that if I improve my internet presence, I will be getting more income somehow. It's never a linear way, the way this works, but it works. That's something that I learned, and you can probably take my word for it, or you can try some of these things out for yourself. And the other thing that I learned that they work are flips, buying and selling things, and also for me personally, trading markets, financial markets is something that I've gotten good at. So I've been doing that in 2019, has played a big role of my cash flow in 2019. And 2019 was my best year so far as income generation. So, I think I just have to do a lot more of these things, and they seem to work. Another thing that I could probably share more here, just looking. Oh, I also made a must-do list of 2020. The mountains gave me some clarity here to come up with things. So I wrote things like, the world will go crazy as it always does. Don't try to control it. Focus on yourself. And what else is very interesting here? Yeah, always stay true to yourself and your goals. Hit daily targets. So yeah, this is interesting. I had this in 2019 as well. This is to have a certain amount of, this is more related to a kind of financial goals, to have a daily target of amount of money you want to make. And this doesn't apply whether it applies whether you're a business person or you're you're working, you can do a side hustle or whatever, at least to hit your target. Start small, and see how you can grow it. Mine started very tiny and has been growing. I've been growing it over the years, and this year is to actually triple that daily, goal, to make sure, a daily target, to make sure that I'm aligned with what I want to achieve. And let me see. Yeah, another thing that I wrote here was be careful of culture. Culture is, is interesting, but also it's to me, it means how you do things, how you choose to do things based on things or ideas or trends of thoughts that you didn't create, but based on what others pretty much prescribe for you, right? So, this can be positive and negative as well. It's good for survival, but also it can play against you if you're not paying enough attention to it. So this is something that I have to always be in check of myself, to check myself for, because I have to ask myself all the time when I'm doing something, am I really doing it for me? That is this coming from me, or this is what I think I should do because society tells me to do so, right? So it's something to be careful about. You have to be careful about how you treat people, how you treat yourself, and how you define things. I think it goes back to where I was looking for definitions for myself, not how things are being defined by someone else. And there is be careful of media and public opinions. I wrote this. Most of it is sensationalism than actual truth. So we all know this, but this is very special to me because I wrote maybe 6, 7 years, maybe 10 years ago even, that I should stop watching television, and I stopped. I think, and I've never had a television in my house. Actually, I don't have a DSTV or some kind of a cable network, because I know how bad it is. It's propaganda, and online has always served as a good alternative because you choose what to consume. But then also these platforms have gotten good at manipulation, right? They pick things that they think you should see, which sometimes is helpful, but also, there is a lot of propaganda going on in that online space these days. So I don't really trust it as much as I used to, right? So, for example, here I said unfollow political pages and people, meaning that on my social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, I'm unfollowing everyone or every company that is news or politic related. This, I think, will serve me right, just as not watching television has served me right for having my own opinions and way of thinking, which is mostly quite different from what the world thinks or the world is going. So I think that's something to take away. And grow your organization skills. Yeah, so this is also something that I need to get good at. I've identified how difficult this is in 2020 because previously I was building businesses that are personal to me, right? Or that I can run them on a one-man show basis, right? It's like, okay, it's all around me and all that. But the thing is, if you're trying to scale, to grow, and you'll realize that you need more people, and having more people means you need to get good at management or leadership, some would call it, right? So this is something that I need to pay attention to, which made me think more about my staff and also colleagues or my business partners as well. So something that I should be good at. So lastly, was relationships. I thought that, yeah, this is actually very interesting because it's something that I always struggle with. But this applies to, relationships with friends, colleagues, relationships with family, or romantic relationships. But on when it comes to romantic relationships, for example, I think people who are religious in some sort of way have it easier because for them, they have written principles that they can follow. Whether they follow the Bible or the Quran or some sort of text that they can follow, and they can look at the 10 Commandments or anything like that, right? But for someone like myself who do not really subscribe to any form of religion, and I tend to always look for logical explanations to justify my behaviors or why I think a certain way, it can be a gray area, on things like morals, for example, right? Well, what is my moral code? So when I was out in the bushes, that's one of the things that I thought more. I was like, okay, so what are my actual morals anyway, right? A good example of this can be in relationships, say romantic relationships. If I'm thinking of an example right now. Okay, so is it okay to go on a date with someone who was dating a friend of yours, say an ex of your friend? If yes, how long must they have been broken up for, right? I don't know why I even thought about this, but this adds to the moral code of people, right? And I had to come to the ground of, okay, so what do I define as having morals, and why do I think that way? And it's not a very easy subject, like I said, if you don't have text that you follow, because you always have to reiterate and think about every single decision that you make in that space. And also my definition of relationships, right? Family is easy to identify, but to me also I consider my friends family, friends that I've been with for a long time. Or I think friendships have levels or degrees, right? And some friends are actually more family than family members, right? So all those things, and I had to be, and I thought I should be even more honest about my definitions of a relationship. Especially this actually applies more in romantic relationships. And lastly was to cut off everyone who brings unnecessary suffering to my personal life. And this applies to family members, friends, or romantic relationships or anything of that sort. Because I think peace, to me, I think it's one of the most important things. I cannot be happy if I'm not peaceful, and I cannot function to my maximum capability if I'm not at peace. Peace is very important to me, so I think it's not worth it to take a lot of weight unnecessarily simply because someone is a friend or a family member. I think if I'm identifying some weird patterns with friends or family, it's better for me to just get involved with them in any sort of way. No hard feelings, but I'm doing it for myself and probably for them too. So it's something that I've always been doing, but I think I just had to remind myself when I was writing it down. And I've been good at it, and I just have to get better at it more, because in 2019, I think some people took advantage of me a few times, including lawyers that I apparently knew very well. So, the solution to this kind of things, I've always thought, is to just get myself out of the picture. So here you go. This podcast episode will be about 25 minutes. Thank you guys for listening to my list and how I spent my New Year's Eve. I wish you the best of 2020 and the best of the entire decade. I hope you win, and perhaps we come across sometimes throughout the year since I look forward to a lot of traveling as well in the new year. So remember to support the podcast by sharing with your friends, and also write me a review of the podcast on Apple Podcast if that's what you're using to listen to it. That is on iPhone or iPad or any sort of Apple product. Otherwise, stay awesome. I wish you the best. See you on the next episode. Thank you.